Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury.
Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon podcast. It is a glorious, happy Tuesday on this lovely day to talk about football. We have so much to get into. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. Thank you for joining us on the main podcast. I've just realised we're all wearing white. It's like the opposite. It's like the opposite of a funeral.
That's exactly.
it's the opposite of our funeral, Newcastle's funeral. Welcome back to the Cannon podcast. Thanks for joining us. We are just going to get straight into it. I'm here with my boys, George and Rohan. Actually, I was going to say before that, Rohan, do we have a word of the day? Because we do want to talk Newcastle, but we can't miss out the word of the day.
Absolutely. The word of the day is ebullient. Have you heard of that one?
Can you say that in a sentence?
I am feeling very ebullient. We are feeling very ebullient.
I'll give you that. Let us know in the comments whether you want this as a permanent fixture on the show, because I think it could be. Who knows? I also think part of the show should be you checking the pronunciation before.
Just in case.
We are, of course, going to spend the most of this talking about Newcastle, so strap in. This is going to be a fun one. I'm excited to get into this, break down the tactics, how we did that, how we got to St James's Park, how we came away with a win for the first time since, was it that 22-23 season?
It is indeed.
Checking in with you, Rohan. That's your bag. Yes, we are speaking on the Monday evening. I still haven't come down from it, and I'm going to start with this as a sort of a conversation starter. I probably one of the things I get accused of, among other things, is sitting on the fence at times, and I'm not going to sit on the fence. I have felt today a real sense that game, Arsenal beating Newcastle 2-1 with the late winner, the manner we did it, the way we did it, is the moment. And that's where I want to start today. I feel as though that was the moment when we're going to look back at the end of the season, having won something, and I hope it's the Premier League or the Champions League, but having won something, and feel as though that was the moment that kickstarted our season. I just think it was such an un-Arsenal. Well, I was looking through the stats in terms of how often we win late. I was looking at our averages over the last couple of seasons. I think I worked out that the Premier League title winner from the last 5 years has always scored something like 16 or 17 goals after the 75th minute, and we've been nowhere near those numbers. When you look at sort of the us coming from behind and points from behind, there's been big margins there. When you look at St James's Park and that whole sort of narrative and side of things, when you look at the way the game went with PGMOL, it had every single thing that probably has slipped Arsenal up for so many years, and we still did it. And that's why I think 24 hours later, it still feels so good. So Rohan, talk to me. Firstly, we didn't hear from you in the instant reaction. So how was the game for you? But also, reflections on that, because I just feel that was the moment.
Mate, so firstly, my record of not missing a single game ended this week, remember, because I went on holiday. Yeah, I went on holiday, and it was a stag do, so I couldn't get out of it. It's just luck of the draw of whether the flight would clash with the Arsenal game. It clashed with the Port Vale game, and I got off the flight, I was thinking, it's going to be 5-0, 6-0. So it was 2-0, I thought, okay, fine. And then the Newcastle game, it was on my mind all Sunday, because I would land at around about the 60th minute, and I asked them to just give me regular updates so I didn't need to go on X or whatnot. And I was reading through all of it, and then VAR overturning the penalty. I thought, what's going on here? And so Newcastle scored. And then I looked at I've got the game on the flight just as I was getting out. And my head was on Mars thinking, again, it's happening. And the last 10 minutes, I know I'm off long, but the last 10 minutes, I sat at passport control. Usually you just go straight through. And everybody is stampede of people. Thought, no, let me get on this chair. I'm watching this game. Everybody who I'm with, they can wait. I'm watching this. And my emotions just from the lowest of the low to then I couldn't celebrate probably because people think I'm a madman there, but I was like, oh. And then one of the guys at passport control was like, "You're all right." I was like, "Yeah, my team just won. My team just won." I was honestly so gassed. And I watched it back, and mate, I very simply is last season on the pod, we said many times that there are certain games in which will decide Arsenal's season. It's not necessarily the big so-called games of your Liverpools and Man Cities that are going to define Arsenal's season. It's going to be the clusters as to whether we can prevent clusters from occurring, and it's being able to go against the likes of St James's Park and being able to stamp our authority and take all 3 points. And, the last 3 encounters that we've had against Newcastle post 22-23, we've not scored a single goal at St James's Park, and to score 2 in which, we left goals on the table. And the way that we did it as well, I think it's fantastic. And again, you're seeing the benefits of having the squad that we do have now as well. So yeah, I'm buzzing. And I do feel like that was big, really big. Huge.
And George, just to kind of piggyback off that, like, it really did feel like a moment, but I think also just to lean into this thing where of all the narratives, all the things that Arsenal get accused of, whether it's, dominating games but not making it count, or being soft, or I don't know, blaming the ref, or, literally everything. You could write down a list of everything that sort of has plagued Arsenal, mid-blocks, central access, like literally everything. Yeah. Felt like it kind of came together at St James's Park, and again, probably the biggest bogey ground, as Rohan was sort of alluding to. And I think that's, to me, why it feels like such a big moment. It's like one of the biggest full circle moments for this Arsenal team that I've felt under Mikel. And yeah, there's so much to get into in each individual aspect, but just as a broad picture, yeah, where are you at with the kind of that was the moment thing? Because I really, really do feel it. And I think what I'm excited to get into is the impact on the players that this is going to have, because I think we're about to see a run, as we were discussing on the instant reaction.
Yeah, like I think on the IR, I kind of compared it to feeling like that Leicester game when we all thought that we could maybe go on to do it. That felt like a moment in the club. And I think it was because there was a lot of narrative questions. And, I think sometimes I'm one to like poo-poo the narrative and really go hard on media narrative and whatnot. But, as a whole, this felt like a coming of age of Mikel's tenure in terms of a lot of the question marks that we've had against him. And, he's got us to a certain point. And the questions on whether or not he can get to the next point are centered on solving physical mid-blocks, are centered on playing more expansive football, knowing that we have the base of the defensive football there. Can we be a little bit more free in the way that we attack to really exploit things? Can he manage his substitute appearances well enough to change games and actually allow us to gain an advantage when we're behind? All of these things, let alone the controversy of the PGMOL, let alone the controversy, by the way, which I was on the timeline. People were furious that Saka was coming off when he did. And there was management towards that. And it's felt like I have seen that story derail Mikel's ability to change a game. And it felt for the very first time that this was, a change in his image. It was a game plan in his image, and it was against an opponent that he hasn't had success with. I mean, just roll back in preseason. We actually had to wait for a Max Dowman break to break open Newcastle back in the preseason. Like, it wasn't as though it was a given. Our very last performance against them wasn't exactly barnstorming. And so it felt like in a lot of ways you're sitting there as a fan knowing the limits of your team. And I think we're all caught in how great we are, but we all know where we're weak, don't we? More than anybody that's going to tell us. And this game just felt like that's it. That is a categorical example of absolutely eliminating any of the concerns in terms of creativity, in terms of what we said. And it was where you don't have to squint. My biggest thing of the summer is I didn't want to have to squint to see quality in the transfer window. This is an example of you not having to squint to see where Arsenal will go this season. And that's just really exciting to see.
Yeah, and I think, look, there will be people, on board with that's the moment thing, and there will be people saying, oh, it's far too early. But look, the fact is, if we'd gone there and absolutely stunk the gaff out and they'd scored an own goal and we hadn't addressed any of the issues, the things that have been holding us back, which is what we're talking about, the things that have been holding us back were addressed in that game. We need a bigger sample. we need to see it beyond Man City and Newcastle, etc. But the fact we have done that and it's given us a blueprint. And I also think, to come to you, Rohan, as well, that last season, because it didn't work out for us, maybe we ignored the kind of meta aspect of playing this race with Liverpool. I think this is going to come into much more effect this season, and I really feel there's going to be much more neck and neck. There's going to be much more who plays. There's going to be a lot more on this podcast going, who's playing first? Are they going to get the points, etc.? And I'm actually quite excited about that because I feel we are a more complete team, and I feel as though if we are able to, if we have proven by that we have addressed a lot of the issues that as George laid out, then that is a massive part. It's going to be a massive part of this season. There's going to be bumps in the road, of course there are, but I think really, mate, and maybe this is where we start to get to the specifics. One of the big positives is I don't think we do this last season in many ways, and one of them is because of the squad. I think one of the many reasons we changed that game is because of Odegaard and Saliba. No doubt in my mind, last season, Odegaard and Saliba start that game. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. But this season, you have the resources, you have the squad, and then what that means is Saliba can come on and look, I think Mosquera, the moment aside, I thought was okay. Maybe didn't have his best game in an Arsenal shirt, but I think he was fine. I think he showed certain things in possession that we love, and maybe there's some question marks. But what Saliba brings to us is, I know we joke about it, but you look at the field tilt numbers in the second half, you can see how high we're staying, and the fact that we can sustain attacks, the fact he can step up, and there's so many moments where the ball breaks, Saliba jumps in. He's so good at that. And he can do that because he's got 45 minutes to do it, not for 90 minutes, where he's worrying about his ankle or whatever it might be. Similarly with Martin Odegaard, because he doesn't start, he can come on and provide the pre-assist for the goal and the assist for the goal, as well as that Miles moment, as well as the tempo control. And so I feel that one of the many things that has led to this moment, which is why I'm so excited by it, is because we have addressed that problem. And so, yeah, talk to me about the sort of the squad aspect of this, because I think that's, the fact that this could be repeatable is one of the exciting parts.
Yeah, I think we can be confident in extrapolating that, the squad is going to win us a lot of points. I mean, 3 of our last 5 games, if you look at Bilbao, what really decided that game? It was the finishes, as Mikhail alluded to, of Trossard and Martinelli. Then you look at the Man City game, regardless of what we think and the frustrations that we had, certainly I had with the first half in how I felt we handicapped ourselves, Eze and Martinelli, they changed the game. Eze with the assist, Martinelli with the goal. They didn't start the game. And as you've just alluded to as well against Newcastle, the impact that Odegaard had, the impact Marino had. We've not even spoken about Marino, in terms of what he did. And it's horses for courses. It's different players who offer different solutions. And I think that's very difficult for the opposition as well, because they are set in defending a specific way against the crop of players that are currently on that pitch. The moment you start making changes to the likes of Odegaard, to the likes of Marino, it becomes a different game. It becomes different ways in which you're then having to defend against. Mikel Marino gives you that presence in the box. How many times has Mikel spoken about Mikel Marino and his ability in the final third to find space and to be precise in his action? It was that Brentford game last season where we went from a goal down, we won 3-1. He spoke about Mikel Marino and how when the game becomes one in which the opposition are recognising a game state in which they need to defend a little bit deeper and they need to sink deeper. And that's what Newcastle felt when they made the Kieran Trippier sub. And they went from a 4-5-1 to a 5-4-1. The game becomes a lot more dense, so then you need to have players who can find the space when there's not that much space at all. And Marino does that, but that's a different player to what we started with. And Martin Odegaard, 23-24 type Martin Odegaard performance that was. Outside the block, drifting, trying to find solutions, trying to find gaps, and that's what he did. So the squad is incredible, mate. And we spoke about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and how the squad and the money that we've invested and how it's created a crop of players that are fantastic is really good value for money as well. And I said it last season, I still believe Arsenal could have won the league last season had we have had a clean bill of health. We didn't have a clean bill of health. We had really poor health. And that meant that we changed our mindset in the transfer window into one that was unprecedented. And we brought a lot of players who had different qualities that the team lacks. And also we have contingency now where if someone drops out, we have someone coming in. Madueke is out for a few weeks, and now Saka's back. And now we've got someone like a Max Dalman or an Ethan Waneri. We've got so many options. And that's what you need, especially in an environment, in an era of football in which there are so many games and everybody's getting better. You all saw that Palace game against Liverpool. They battered them in the first half, mate. Crystal Palace, listen, they're right now, they're overperforming. They're going to regress to the mean. They're going to be around about, I'd say, 8th, 9th, 10th. That's where they'll finish, in my opinion. But that's the level that teams are able to put up with. Brighton, Fabian Hertzler, big games every single time, manages to get a result. Bournemouth, Wolves, what they did against Spurs. There's so many good teams, and that's why you need a squad to ensure that you're physically capable of being able to match up to all these teams and have different solutions.
Did you see that thing that I think was it James that posted? Someone posted, something like, best league in the world because Sunderland were third and Palace were second or something. And James was like, that's the point. It's literally the point. That's what Sunderland can be third in the best league in the world. That's how good it is. Yeah, George, just before we get into the more specifics of the game, I do want to press on this Liverpool thing because I do predict it being a bit more of a, I think it's going to be a bigger shadow over our season. And I want to talk to you about some Saka comments. He was talking to, I think it's Optus Sport or something. I'm not sure exactly where they come from, but he was chatting to Jermaine Genius and various people and some quotes I haven't really seen him seen many people report on. He was asked about the Liverpool thing and basically whether they felt there was kind of more pressure to win. It was interesting. He said, no, I felt less pressure. When Liverpool haven't won, I feel kind of less pressure. I feel like we can actually go out there. He didn't exactly say, I feel like then we can go out there and sort of play our game. But he was basically saying, that to me, it's like, actually, we've got an opportunity here. How do you think we manage this kind of Liverpool story through the season? How do you see it playing out? What do you feel is the best tactic with this? Because I feel it's going to be a bigger thing in our season.
How I would deal with it is not talking about it. The more you give it power, the more that it dominates your mind space. And I think that Bukayo is excellent in terms of his response. I think fans will. I think fans will do this, after every training session, because it's going to be, at this point, we need trophies. But I think logically what you do, look, I can only speak for myself. Like when I have a big assessment coming up or something like that, being constantly reminded that big assessment. You're up. But, like whenever it is, like if you have a big deadline, being constantly reminded about how important that deadline is. And, it's not going to help you perform more. It's not going to lower the stakes that you already know you're engaging in. Like I know the stakes. I know what's involved and what's at stake this season for it. And I think really, for me at least, one of the biggest things that Liverpool got praised for and Arne Slot got praised for was there was this idea that Liverpool weren't necessarily playing the best from minute 1 to 90, but they would find a way to win. And Arne Slot was brilliant about platforming his players and being able to provide balance across his 11s consistently. And he was putting his best players in positions to thrive, supporting Mohamed Salah to basically stay up in the final third and attack the last line consistently and formulate the team in a way that it was protected to allow him to do his best work. And the reason I'm going to say that is because we go back to, for me, a phenomenal player. I said it on the IR and I maintain it. Declan Rice was absolutely unbelievable. You talk about some of the roles that we have played with Declan Rice last year. You compare it to how we've used him this season. You look at Eberiche Eze. We talk about Odegaard having a brilliant cameo. Well, what are some of the differences? Like, let's actually analyze it. I mean, Odegaard is not playing the same way that he did, for example, when he has started in these matches previously. He was playing a lot more behind the ball, feeding balls into those that are receiving in the pockets as opposed to being the one to receive in the pocket. It's about role changes, and where the biggest thing for me in this game, it was an example of Mikel leaning in to balance and putting his best players in positions they thrive in. I look at Saka and the freedom that he had to come inside, and just as a whole, when I'm comparing between Liverpool and Mikel, the one thing that I felt Mikel really could learn from Arne Slot was to respect that balance and the instincts of a player. And I hope we don't see us regress to more consistent role usages that we're sitting there scratching our heads with a little bit, understanding that these are brilliant players. Yes, they can perform in different roles, but that doesn't mean you should. And that doesn't mean that they're still not the secondary role to what they would ideally like to do. And that's the biggest thing when you talk about a comparison for Liverpool for me. Firstly, don't talk about it. Like, it makes no point repeating how high the stakes are. We know how high the stakes are. The team knows it. We don't need to be reminded of what it's like there. But the biggest thing that we can do is we can put our players in the best positions to thrive more consistently than the opposition. We do that, and we will be there. And we will get successful outcomes like you saw against Newcastle.
We will be there. Yeah, I think we can certainly learn from them. Let's get into the specifics of the game. I'm going to start with PGMOL so we can get it out of the way, get out our systems, and then praise our team. Rohan, George and I had our say. You won't have seen it in real time, so give us your rundown of how that went for you.
Yeah, I think my head would have been on Mars, mate, if I saw that in real time. I only saw it after the dust was settled as well. And this idea that, if you touch the ball and then it's automatically becomes not a foul is just nonsense. There's a rule literally there. I don't know under what exact number it is in the guidance, but it states that a player can touch the ball, but if he is reckless, it can still be a penalty. Nick Pope there has cleaned him out. He's cleaned Gyökeres out. I don't know what other discourse there is around it. And the fact that the referee gave it a penalty, how can someone sit there and tell me it's a clear and obvious error from the on-field call?
Ridiculous.
Like how? And the biggest issue I have with this as well, and I said it last year, the moment the referee is told to look at the touchscreen monitor, I am convinced that they're not even going to be looking at the situation really and truly, because somebody's already give them that thought in their mind that he's thinking in that moment, okay, they're asking me to go to the monitor for a reason, so that is going to supersede anything that he's thinking in that moment. So I'm like, no point even going to the monitor. You're going to overturn your decision anyway. It's just nonsense, mate. And the thing is people say, oh, you shouldn't talk about it because we won. No, we should absolutely talk about it when we won, because then it shows that we are not just letting it, we're not brushing it underneath the carpet. We should be talking about it. It's exactly the same as the Wolves game. The Wolves game where Miles Lewis-Skelly got sent off last season. We won the game, but it was important to talk about it because it was a shocking decision. And this really could have cost us. At a time where we were on the ascendancy, we were creating opportunities, we were playing brilliantly, and we weren't rewarded fairly in that moment. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, we spoke about the inconsistency on the IR, and it's something we've spoken about many times before. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's something that I really struggle with, the kind of the partisan aspect of it. Like, yes. I really like when I see a bad VAR call go against Chelsea, or you will never catch me celebrating. Like, honestly, like maybe I'll just go, oh, that's nice that they lost, but I'm never gonna like come out and be like, yeah, great, and analyze it. Like, really, like, it's not good for football. And therefore, it's not good for anyone, and it's not good for us. So what's the point? And I'm glad you said that, because I think, both Bukayo and Mikel in their post-match presses saying, no, like we're going to talk about this. Like, it doesn't matter whether we won, doesn't matter whether we lost. Yeah. That wasn't good enough, and it's not about us crying at St James's Park because the ball went out, whenever that was a couple of years ago. It's about the fact that there are inconsistencies in this, and there are problems in the system. Sticking with you, Rohan, just quickly, did you feel I won't give you a leading question. How did you feel about that Gabrielle situation, the potential penalty?
The goal?
No, sorry, the penalty the penalty that got cleared.
I thought it was Stonewall when I saw it initially. Thought, oh my god! But it does hit his shin, doesn't it? It hits his shin first. Yeah, it hits his leg first, and then it hits his arm.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. If there wasn't a rule around it, I'd want that to be given a penalty if my team, because of where his hand is. I understand that, he perhaps can't get his hand away, but it is high, and I do feel like if there was an opportunity to get rid of that rule, I would be giving penalties for that because of how high the hand is. So that's where I do stand on that. But by the letter of the law, it is the right decision. And that's all I'm going. I'm going solely based on what rules are implemented, and the rules that are currently implemented show that it's not a penalty. But I don't know, what do you think differently?
No, I watched it again last night, and it's one of those things where there's three separate things. There's what happened, there's the law, and there's the interpretation of the law. And things can get very muddled between all three, and people are denying what happened, and people are saying, well, the law's right, and it's all this weird muddle. If you ask me, being honest, if that was a Newcastle player, I would be absolutely furious, and I would be saying, change the bloody law.
Yeah.
But that's the law, and ultimately, firstly, that's happened how many times to us. So maybe I'm being partisan there and being a bit of a hypocrite, but there's a part of me going, that's fine. I probably would change the law, but yeah, I felt we got away with one. But ultimately, if you look at it and the VAR has cleared it because it's fine by the laws, then we didn't necessarily, but it feels like we did.
But that's what exactly. That was
yeah.
that was their response in the tweet, isn't it, from the official page? It's like, okay, it's hit Gabrielle's legs, therefore it's not a penalty. And do you know what? I'll never criticize a referee if they give a decision like that, because they're going by
it's consistent.
Exactly.
That's consistent. Whether I agree with the law or not, that's consistent.
But not go like, my heart was racing when I saw it. I thought, that looks clear. Yeah.
As was mine. We'll move on to the game itself now and talk a bit more about the tactics and stuff. But I do want to say, I'm so glad that this podcast isn't about that, because there was one point where we were on a collision course for a hour-long Crisis Talks PGMOL kind of podcast, and it's just, my position, as people know, is they're just bad. They're just bad, and there's only so many times you can keep saying it. The one thing I will say before we move on is I'm really interested, once we win, because we are going to win, once we win, whether the criticism starts to ramp up a little bit from our side. I wouldn't be surprised if Mikel starts to say certain things, if there's a bit more pressure, if there's a little bit more, because at the moment...
I think he's pretty loud already. I think it'll just get worse.
I think it'll go to a different level. The way he speaks about it, you can see he's got so much to say, but he's just like, I'm not going to go there.
It's fair to as well,
I'm not going to go there.
Because you then got substance behind your name, don't you?
You've just got to win. You've got to win. Yeah. Let's get into the game itself. Weirdly, although the second half obviously brought our goals, I felt as though the first half was probably arguably the better of the two. I think you could probably split it either way in terms of the intentions, in terms of what we were trying to do. George, we chatted about this a little bit on the instant reaction, so maybe don't go over sort of old ground. But anything else from that first half that you sort of felt has come to you in the last sort of 24 hours or so? Because I was really, the intention, the where we were matching them in every aspect, in the physicality, in the technicality, in the emotion of the game, in the aggression of the game, in the tactics of the game. We were finding our spare man. I felt we were doing the kings of everything thing that Mikel loves to do.
Yeah, I won't go too much into like just the broad freedom point that I did go over on the IR, but there's just this very simple move that you're taught in football. Like this up, back, and through. You basically play a ball forward to the side, they'll play it back to the position of play, and you switch it out to the far side. That's just the simple up, back, and through mechanism. And that's something that we were doing quite a bit in terms of both of our channels. First off, Raya would look for early balls out to the channels, out to Gyökeres immediately, like consistently throughout the game. And a lot of our play went from being really vertical up to the wings to hopefully have either Gyökeres or even Saka, somebody have it. Even for the goal, like you look at Eze picking up from deep, throwing it all the way up to Bukayo Saka, bringing it down, coming back, and they're passing it through some pressure, and Gyökeres latches onto it, and we're unlucky with PGMOL, yada, yada, yada. But it's the same principle of essentially going high, back, and then through the lines again. And it's something that was consistently done throughout the match that was really, really interesting from my perspective. And then the last thing also was just when it got to a point when it was a low block, there was this one pass from Zubimendi that I thought was brilliant, and it was the Timber chance on the header that he's clear through on goal. That was just an absolutely brilliant bit of play in which Eze's on the right and he draws a little bit of foul. There's a little bit of that individual quality in the dribble to go and create some space, but then there's just a quick fire decision into the mixer, comes back out, and Zubimendi with a very articulated little chip over the back line in very tight areas for Timber to go and do. And I think Timber does brilliantly to get it on target, but that intent to kind of go over the top of a block immediately on the top of your box is something that we haven't done enough of. That stabbed over the top pass and the creative solutions that we came up with inside the block were really, really interesting. There was a lot of people trying things that I don't think we would have seen, and we didn't get sucked into this U-shaped back post cross and hope kind of thing. Even on the goal, by the way, for Mikel Merino, there's a moment in which Declan Rice calls for it to do a short corner. If you actually look on the replay, they do some kind of signal with his nose, and everyone's funneling to get a short corner, which, by the way, Mikel Merino doesn't read immediately. Like, he's set up for a back post cross. You can see the confusion immediately once Declan Rice comes inside. It's just a phenomenal header. Like, that headed goal by Mikel Merino, it's not been talked about, like the quality of it. That is an incredibly difficult finish to do.
That's by me, mate. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy, and very Giroud-esque in the way that, you're able to see him get up there but then guide it in that way. Like, it was a very finessed finish. But regardless, it was just another example of us going short off a corner that isn't something that we normally do. And it was just us trying new things again. And I think, ironically, the Gabrielle goal is probably the biggest example of us going back to our bread and butter, just throw it in from a delivery aspect and get up there. But as a whole, our approach to the kind of low block, mid block solution problem, there was a lot of really interesting things happening. I finally didn't see Calafiori, for example, be the one that was on the inside channel that we always go to. Like the fullback usage of the inside channel was not something we resorted to. And in fact, it was Martin Odegaard. That was the biggest phenomenal part. And I did touch on it earlier, in which I felt that Martin Odegaard, and I want to highlight it again, just because I don't think it's being talked about enough. The reason he thrived, and I'm convinced, is because he's the one feeding the passes into the front line there instead of being the one to quickly turn and be the main creator. There is a reason that he looked free, he looked quicker in tempo, and he looked like he had more time and space. And I find that using Eze as the instigator in the three and Odegaard supplementing that is a better use of roles than the other way around, in which Martin Odegaard's the higher one and Eze supplementing that. It's a small change, but it's significant because Eze can do what he's best at in terms of some of the dribbling and the power to escape pressure in those tight areas. But then Martin Odegaard's got the vision that Eze, I don't believe, has deeper in a block. Like, I don't believe Eze is going to have that through ball that Martin Odegaard's going to do for miles. However, I don't think Odegaard's going to do the dribble that Eze does to set up the timber chance. And that's the point, that you don't sit and talk about the differences between the two, but we do talk about where you're receiving and where you're passing to. And that, to me, is the biggest change that I looked at with the low block, because we finally had our interiors, for example, that can receive on the inside, turn and go, be brilliant. One thing I'll end on as well, this up, back, and through thing that I did talk about, another chance I'll encourage everybody to look back on is look at the Trossard chance, by the way. That comes, by the way, from an up motion. Gyökeres peels off to the right, comes back on the inside. Saka comes inside, feeds out Trossard, and it's a big sweeping motion that's just brilliant. That is the exact example that I'm talking about. But again, we see Saka, the one that's on the inside, able to evade that challenge and really just break open the Newcastle kind of mid-block there. And it was beautiful to see. So it was a combination of those two things in terms of our up, back, and through, but also our intentions when we're in the block. Who is the one that is feeding the passes and who is the one receiving those passes? And we struck the balance there that I think we have the template that we should really look towards a little bit more.
Yeah, you used the word there, balance. That was exactly what I was about to say. I think the balance was right for me, Rohan, and I think we got it right through the game. And it's very easy just to look at that as because we played Eze, not Mourinho, whatever it might be. But it is a bit more complicated, and it's about the usage, as George was kind of alluding to. I think specifically with Trossard, that usage I really, really like, and I can see him getting a lot of minutes if Calafiori, this Calafiori, Eze, Trossard kind of triangle can continue. I really like it because it's players who are comfortable in different positions, who can go rotate with each other, who can really form a similar, similar effective bond in the same way to White, Saka, and Odegaard, if not the same stylistic bond. So yeah, I think balance was the thing, and I felt as though there was good coverage across the pitch and players in the right positions broadly. I want to come on to one player specifically though, and a player who I think deserves praise, although we have never praised him, of course, is no player has applied more pressures in either the final third with 202 or in the opposition penalty area with 85 so far this season than Arsenal's Victor Gyökeres. I thought Gyökeres, I think probably, maybe on reflection, did have his best game in an Arsenal shirt, having watched some more of it back today and watched his individual actions. I think for me, there's a level to go with fitness, but as he's growing into his fitness, I'm seeing his effectiveness grow, and I'm really liking it. I'm really liking what I'm seeing in terms of the running, in terms of the sprinting. I think he's starting to understand the triggers and the patterns a little bit better in terms of the press, in terms of, I think he was putting a lot of pressure on Nick Pope and causing a lot of their problems in build-up. So I think he's understanding, if you compare that to, say, his first game against Man United, I think we've seen big strides there. Absolutely. I just think he looks fitter, mate. I think there's this moment where, and it probably sums up where he is right now for me, there's a moment, I can't remember exactly what it happens, but he's in a 1v1 against Malik Tior, I think it is, and he attempts to cut back. He does everything right. I mean, literally, like he's eating through the ground. You're seeing that translation, the stuff that we really wanted to see from Sporting. You're watching someone running into space. You're seeing that. He probably just overcomplicates it by trying that cutback, but it's so good up to that point. My feeling is basically, as this fitness grows, I'm seeing more effectiveness. I think if he can reduce his touches, simplify his game, and be in the right positions, I'm a lot happier than I was, let's say, 2 months ago.
Absolutely. I think with Gyökeres, it is chalk and cheese compared to that Man United game, because I remember after that, I said one of the big issues that we had in terms of not being able to press onto United properly was Gyökeres, because he was slow to go from Euro
as well.
Yeah, to go from Euro to bind it. And I remember like there were a couple of videos that I saw after rewatching it, and I felt like I think Gyökeres is quite. It's quite funny, isn't it? Because obviously the opinions on Gyökeres at the moment is polarizing amongst the Arsenal fan base. So it's kind of like, you're trying to kill a guy who's just came here, but it's just someone who needed a bit of time. And you're seeing, as you alluded to, the pressures and how he's becoming a lot more aggressive. It's funny because Eze is now the one who's learning. So as good as Eze was, there were many times in that first half where we're trying to go early, and that's something that is different to last season in terms of when we're in a settled block and everybody's going there, and Eze's a little bit hesitant because he's not new to this environment and how we play. But Gyökeres was really good in that regard. And I thought, like, listen, it's not easy. When you go to Newcastle, it's a battering ram performance. It just is. They provoke you into playing that sort of game. And that's why I felt, the 22-23 game, I think is massively overblown. Newcastle press a lot better now, and they force you to go really direct. And Gyökeres did really well in that regard. One thing I do want to say is I'm liking the fact that we are adapting more and more to Gyökeres. And the reason why I think this is because Newcastle, they press man to man. They go all in. Remember last season, the Declan Rice situation where David Rice sells himself short, David Rice sells Rice short, and Fabian Schär is there, who's all in. He nicks it off him, and Gordon scores. That's Fabian Schär, the centre-back on the edge of our own box. They go all in. And what we were doing is Trossard, he was abandoning width, just like he did against Man City, and how, I think you, Alex, said, I wish Eze was there, to do that role. The reason why he abandons width is to potentially become a +1, to become the free man, or if his marker follows him, which Newcastle do, the centre-back, which was one of the two, would go all in. That allows Gyökeres to hit the channel. There's more space now to go into that area and to go 1v1 in a more side-on fashion as opposed to back to goal. And that's what we were doing a lot. And I thought Gyökeres was doing well in that regard as well. So we're adapting to him more now. Whereas if that's Kai Havertz, where we're going long, we're not doing that trigger of Trossard abandoning and coming inside. We're hitting it straight into Havertz to then play off. So I like the fact that we're making subtle differences where we mentioned it, like, Gyökeres needs to adapt to Arsenal. This can't just be a one-way thing of, okay, we need to do everything to help Gyökeres. It needs to be Gyökeres adapts to us, and then we can do certain things to adapt to him. And I think we're starting to see that change. And I like the fact that he got a lot of shots off in this game. Not all great, some bobbly touches here and there, but mate, I'd rather that than him and not get that sort of service, that sort of involvement all day long.
20 shots overall. Gyökeres had 6, as they had 4. So 10 between the new signings. I think, for, as we've said many times in this podcast, the shot shy team. Yeah. It's really exciting to see a team beginning to crank up the gears. And I think I went back through it. The last time we had 20 shots against, I'd call Newcastle big 6 opponents, but I think it's top half opponents. People you'd expect a tough game against was ironically against Newcastle in that 2-0 at home defeat in the EFL Cup back in January. So that's how long it's been since we've had that many shots in a game against that opposition of that quality. So that tells you something has shifted. In terms of another individual, George, I want to come on to Eze a little bit more specifically. Rohan mentioned it there. I think in terms of the limitations and stuff that he's struggled with a little bit at times. And I felt there's maybe moments where he's not quite in the right space to stop a pass or whatever it might be. But they are little things. How have you found his adaptation so far? What did you think of him against Newcastle? For me, I think the biggest thing, and I'm going to come on to this in a question later, is Mikel's mentioned this week, had a quote this week where he said something along the lines of there's an emotional aspect to decision making. And I love that way of putting it. In terms of the shot taking, in terms of the risk taking, he is just willing to do it. Those shots from outside the box, we could have been 2 up already. And I love that. And I love that that's what we've added to our team with Eze, because it's not, yes, it's about him being in the right positions. It's about the technique. It's about, finding him as a 10 and the free roll and all these things. But ultimately, if you are in that moment, the ball is dropping to you, you have to be of the emotional profile to go, I'm having a shot. And I love that we've added that to our team. I think we sort of predicted it, but it's lovely to see it coming into our team. But yeah, thoughts on him sort of generally and in this performance?
His job is to be a provocateur, really. And he initiates things and moments on his own. And it's just about asking somebody to take responsibility. Like, that's at its core what he does. You want to mention the shots outside the box. I can mention the dribble for the chance for the Timber goal. I can mention the pass to Bukayo Saka for the penalty, in which he drops in, just has a look up, plays that long ball. He did the exact same thing against City. This is a guy that just does it in the manner of Nike. Like, there's no kind of debate about what he can do. And actually, I think he's growing, personally. I've always felt that Eze is somebody that I think tends to peak from February onwards in the season. But at moments at Palace had times where he was a little bit slow. He has come with a barnstorming start. Like, what is his goal and assist output, by the way, at this point in terms of his cameos? He's got at least 2 or 3.
Got an assist, Forest.
Yeah.
Got a goal against
City.
Port Vale. Assist for City, and now exactly. So he's on 3.
So he's on 3, and that's pretty dang good for somebody.
Should have had something yesterday.
Should have had something yesterday.
Yeah.
Deserved it from his play yesterday. And it feels nice because I think we're developing somebody else that has a consistent output gene into it. And somebody has to go to him, because we have that in Saka. But I still didn't feel that last year, despite what we had in terms of people having moments. There wasn't somebody reliable and consistent enough to question the opposition that wasn't named Bukayo Saka. And right now, Eze is showing, you let him drop off deep, he's going to drop and do the City pass, or even the pass for he does for Gyökeres. You don't do that and you pressure him high, he's just going to float in the pockets, find a little bit of a +1, be a little bit closer to that, and start doing a brilliant dribble. Again, I'll just go back to this wild segment in which his job is being a provocateur. It's about instigating reactions. And he has been brilliant at it. And in fact, I'd argue he looks to be growing to me. And I think that we're going to see a different level from him this season, just generally speaking. And I think he's the type of player that I really think his performances for Arsenal are going to platform him to be a real big starter for England. And
100%.
I think he's going to just take the next step. Like, he is a very good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to go to that upper echelon of elite in terms of how he's viewed. And I don't know if he's necessarily viewed as that. Everyone thinks brilliant player, oozes quality. You don't have to guess when you see it. But I haven't really seen him mentioned in the elite of the elite creators. And truly, I don't see why he can't. And I've looked at what he's been able to do with this Arsenal side, and I just think to myself, there's one relationship I really want to see, guys, and it is Piero Hincapié and Eze. I have a feeling that partnership has the buddings of your original Grealish and Lucas Digne kind of type of partnership, in which you have somebody on the outside, and it just allows him to have the freedom to just be an absolute menace. Because at this point, he's already excelling, but I think he's got some other stuff to show us.
Just to quickly add on to that, just a question for you two, right? And it brings it's linked to the Eze talk, right? So you saw how we played yesterday, and we saw the involvement Eze had centrally and what we were able to do and cut through Newcastle. Now, and you mentioned it like last season, where we go for that back post cross as our tried and tested method of creating an opportunity, a really good opportunity. Do you not think, like, if we had an Eze, if we had a Zubimendi last season, we'd be playing like this? And right. This goes back to my point about how last season Arsenal were just never able to get into a position where they can play the way that they want to. I refuse to believe if we had Eze last season, Mendy last season, we'd just be going for a back post cross.
It's so painful. It's so painful watching it because you sort of in theory you know it's a lot about profiles, but yeah.
And this is the whole point about why I always say quality is the preeminent driver to everything. It is though, isn't it? Because it's like I refuse to believe like Mikel has just thought this season, oh, I'm going to play this way now. No.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We also all missed. Well, me and you, Rohan, missed the most George take of all time, which is that he's most excited about the Hincapié thing. I'm most excited about him with Saka, mate. I just think, like realistically, putting those two together. The thing I'm most excited about is actually maybe this is a bit more of a me take, to be fair, the way he uses his body. Like he's so strong, and he has that slightly Milesy thing of getting across people and using his body and getting out of situations that you don't expect him to be in. I only think that's
it's like laboured as well, isn't it? It's like really lethargic.
I only think that develops, and that in combination with Saka on the right-hand side, those two who can retain it, who can pass it, who can create stuff, who can who can play each other in. Like I really think it's so exciting, and I'd love to see more of that. Obviously, Martin Odegaard sort of allowing. Eze spoke to Sky earlier in the week, and he said, "I've only just started at Arsenal. I feel like I'm being pushed, and my mind is being stretched. And for me, that's where I want to be. I want to live in that place of getting it, but not getting it, and being able to work and operate, but also be myself. That is where you want to live, and I want to know that I'm consistently improving if that is the case. Mikel considers details that you are just not. He sees me out on the training pitch and says something I haven't even thought about or considered, and the moment I apply it and put it into practice, I realise the difference it makes." And I think this is the kind of the adaptation period, and maybe why we're all so excited about what, yes, he's had the impact he's had so far, 3 GA and 5, whatever it might be. I think he's changed the mentality of the team from a sort of creative perspective, not necessarily from a dominance perspective, but from a sort of going forward point of view. But I think there's so much more to come, which is so exciting with Eze. Let's finish on the game before we move to some questions, because there'll be loads more about the game and sort of the various offshoots of that. George, I'll come back to you. We have an opportunity now, and we sort of spoke about this a little bit on the instant reaction in terms of these next few games. I really do feel we are about to go on a run. And if obviously got the Olympiacos game midweek, but then we're at home against West Ham, we're away against Fulham, we're then in the I won't say that word, but something ball derby with Atletico Madrid, at home to Crystal Palace, and then at home to Brighton in the Carabao Cup before November. Talk to me about that run, because you've kind of said before that this is a run you want to see some stuff proven in, and I think we are beginning to see that proof. It's still early days; we still have to wait and see, but I think it's worth laying out those tracks.
Yeah, like this run is where This run is where I say I told you so. Is where, or I say I'm wrong. Like this to me was the test of the season, to be honest with you. And this is what I needed to see. Like if you were looking at my personal question, I'll just speak to me about what I needed to see from this Arsenal team. Is I always felt like with a bigger squad and the tools that we got, we were going to see different tactics. I didn't agree that, we're just going to be the same way. And this whole rigidity talk with Mikel, I felt was not fair, to be honest with you. I think with new tools, you're inevitably going to play different ways. So I wasn't afraid of it. I was worried whether or not he would consistently get the best out of players that he already knows, and he does, because that to me has been a weakness of his before. I've seen moments of it, not just in the way that we're now playing a little bit more for Gyökeres, not just in the way that we're kind of using Eze and with Odegaard and with Saka. I'm seeing better usage. And to me, these games were the ones that he galaxy brained. I ironically felt like a top 6 side. I'm very confident in a Mikel Arteta game plan against a top 6 side. And I think people that are Arsenal fans would be lying if you honestly could say, given our record, how many times has he really got it wrong against a top 6? I don't know about that. It hasn't been often. And he certainly got like the best record I've seen against the top 6 managers. So for me, it was never about those top 6 clashes. I knew we would be fine. For me, it was these types of matches. Are we going to show something different? Are we going to resort to type? And, it's great. I think Newcastle step 1 and all that stuff. But when you look at the run, It's the West Ham, it's the Fulham, it's the Atletico Madrid, it's the Olympiacos, by the way, an opponent who we haven't always had great time with Mikel, I'm talking. Back in early Europa League days, Olympiacos gave us a run because of the type of team that they are. And they're going to do the exact same thing, guys. It's going to be the exact same physical mid-block
coming through
stuff.
Come on, George.
And it's just, no, but they are an example of like that type of team. It's the physical mid-block gauntlet the next little bit. And it's nice that we're not leaving London as far as just to travel towards it. It's really nice. But I do look at more towards the type of game that we face, because then after this run, after the 4 or 5, we actually start to get a little bit, respectfully, people that you would consider in the relegation zones and people outside like the traditional top 15. And we start playing a little bit of those teams. And that to me is when we start getting back our Havertz, your Jesus, your Nani Madueke's. And that's where this team needs to take off, but they need the bedrock of what these next 4 to 5 games in the month of October is going to give you. So from my perspective, I've always felt like this was the one. This was like the one where I have egg on my face, where I sit there and I'm really cocky about the potential of this team. And I'm confident in it, but I do think we just have to lean in on some of the examples that we've used in this game. And we shouldn't use it as like an outlier. Like we shouldn't use this moment and waste it. I really want us to capitalize with momentum. And I don't know if we've always done that in title runs with Mikel. Like when we're in a good moment, we've absolutely been in a good moment, but it's normally in reactive to somebody else. Now we're in the driver's seat. Like go, like overtake Liverpool, be the one that's dominating and pushing and leading the race at this point. Don't be reactive to really good play elsewhere in the league or reactive to some kind of other narrative, you know. I want us to be very proactive in the way that we decide this title race. And that's why this is so critical.
Yes, and I think they're about to go on that run. Like I really do quite strongly believe that. And I have some numbers, some copium numbers if you want them. We have 2 more points than last season from the corresponding fixtures, and Liverpool only have 1. Ha ha. We're going to win the league, and we're 1 up on goal difference, and they're -2 on goal difference. So basically, lads, just call it now. Right, we're going to go to questions to get to all your questions. Thank you so much for asking questions. You get priority access to questions if you are a member on Discord, which you get access to as a patron or YouTube member. You can become a director of the patrons or YouTube members and become a director's box, and you get access to a monthly phone-in, which we're actually doing after this recording, which is good fun. We get to chat to you guys and get to know you guys a little bit more, and yeah, other things on the Discord thing, including voting on the Scouted episodes and George's monthly Tactics Corner, but also, of course, you as a North Bank member, the other side of things, you get access to the rewatches and the Scouted, etc. Plug, and the Discord was the point of that. I realised, chaps, we didn't actually discuss the whole Tim Lewis thing. I think it kind of just happened in the gap of a pod. I can't remember exactly why we didn't, but we ended up not discussing it. I think it was a game or something, whatever might have happened. I'm sure everyone's heard the news now, so I don't need to sort of recontextualise. There was an article in the Times that Oneros posted in our Discord, sort of giving a little bit more insight into what happened with Tim Lewis. George, I know you've got opinions on this, so I'll come to you in a second. Rohan, talk to me. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's happened kind of in the blue, hasn't it? Out of the blue. Like, it's something like this, if it was planned, you'd expect it to be before the season, right? As opposed to, the season starting and this news coming through. But ultimately, I do think, like, I'm going to use that word, ultra-crepidarian. It's one of those things, but I just don't think I can give concrete opinions on what I think of Tim Lewis, because there's so much information that we're just not, unfortunately, exposed to, and we won't ever really be exposed to, right? And all I can say is he's been there for, since the Kroenkes had a stake in Arsenal, and then, was it longer than that, was it? Yeah.
I think so, and I think that's when he, really moved up.
Yeah, so for you to be there that long, you absolutely have to be doing something good, right? So it's another opportunity, though, for someone like Richard Garlick now with new responsibility to step up and see what he can do. The one thing I do like about it is there seems to be profound emphasis on Josh Kroenke taking over and having a lot of responsibility with this, because I do think, the January window for me was extremely disappointing, and it was a massive red flag in that moment for the Kroenke ownership since 2018. I'm looking post 2018 because that's when they've gained full ownership of the football club. And I believe that they've done a lot of fantastic things, you know, in terms of the youth, in terms of the first team, what we've been able to do post-COVID and being able to, you know, rip up contracts and, you know, sign players and allow us to mold the squad into what we have right now. We've done a lot of really good things. And the thing I like about Josh Kroenke is he's been really transparent, and I can feel like fans can resonate more with him. Unfortunately, a lot of fans still aren't keen on the Kroenkes because of what happened pre-2018 and the period that we had to go through with Arsene, in him being handicapped on the financial power he had to mould the squad into what he wanted. And that still leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But overall, I do think Josh Kroenke has been really transparent in how he's conveyed his message. Actions speak louder than words, and I do think his actions have showed. And I'm interested to see this next part of what Arsenal to become under a different way. It clearly is a different way. You know, you're losing someone with that level of authority in Tim Lewis. There's definitely change, and change sometimes is needed. You know, you have to get comfortable by being uncomfortable. So, yeah,
and changes can be scary, and you know, we've seen a lot of certainly progress. If people might take issue with the word success, but I think a lot of progress, and I think success in many areas off the pitch. But sometimes you do need to take that leap. In terms of what we know from this article, and this is from the Times, where they source it, who knows? But let me just read what is sort of been summarised here. So 3 KSC figures from the US and film producer Ben Winston joined as non-executive directors. That's public information. Otto Marley, Kelly Blaha, who's financial, Dave Stein, who's a long-time advisor. Otto Marley is a real estate guy, and Ben Winston is a sort of media guy. Josh Kroenke has promised more involvement, but still focuses on US franchises, including Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. He skipped the first Premier League shareholders meeting after the Man City draw, leaving Garlick and CFO Stuart Wisely to attend. Lewis had been a tough, demanding boss, boosting commercial income to rival Liverpool and Manchester United while helping build one of the league's strongest squads. Some believe Kroenke felt the rebuild was complete and wanted direct control. Others fear Arsenal could drift back to the pre-Lewis era of weaker direction from absentee owners. And I think that's kind of the summary, isn't it? You can kind of go two ways. You can go, well, this is, you know, proof that Josh is going to take more control. There's going to be too many chefs in the kitchen, or there's, you know, we needed that strong leadership, or actually, you know, the strong leadership was too much. We need to, you know, better those relationships at sort of board level. There's lots of unknowns. George, you've been critical of Tim Lewis in the past and his role. And I'm curious how this news got to you, sort of what your take on it, and sort of, where you sit with it.
I won't relitigate what my opinions on it are. It's like in the past, it's kind of out there for everyone to see. I have had a feeling that something like this would have been in the off, whether it was Tim Lewis or somebody in the boardroom, because to me, the strategic outlook of the team was so vastly different from the year before to now. And I think that when you have such a different direction, it's not just from new people coming in, it's because there's a power vacuum. And, you know, in order for somebody like Andrea Berta to successfully come in and enact the kind of summer that he had fully, which we saw, there was a lot of very different approaches that Arsenal used this year, not just in terms of the recruitment, but in terms of the mentality from the sell to buy, the messaging that we did in order to get things done. There was just a different level of operation towards it. And I always felt like we would find out, much in the same way that when Edu left, it wasn't necessarily something that was in the off for much of a time. It was more, it came out that, you know, Marinakis had been talking to him, and then piecing it back together. Well, okay, that makes sense when you start piecing together what Edu had said, you know, the Raheem Sterling interview and stuff like that. And you start to see, when you look back retroactively about some things, okay, there were some murmurings there that maybe we didn't pick up on, but I think a lot of times these moves are delayed where I think the club knows quite a bit. Like, I don't think Tim Lewis leaving happened now. I think that there was a lot of frustration and issues that happened over the summer, and the fallout may have happened. The axe may have happened now, but I think the fallout and the struggle towards that power would have happened a lot sooner. And I don't think you move on from somebody that you've had a relationship with 6 or 7 years, unless it was pretty stark as well. And there must have been something that was a point of difference. And if the ideas are that you're framing this as a way to move forward, and you're talking about how brilliant you must have been to be at the place for 6 years, for you to leave abruptly, which it seems to have been quite abrupt, and even in the reporting it seems abrupt in terms of his leaving, it had to have come for me from a disagreement on some level. And whether that's Tim Lewis or something else, I just simply go back to the point. In the past year, before this summer, I felt that Arsenal and our operations moved in a very disappointing manner. It wasn't just one summer. It wasn't just the one January transfer window. Something along the lines of almost 18 months that I felt like this idea we seem to have to sell to buy. I never understood who that was coming from and the restrictions that seemed to be placed and our direction in terms of not going for it. Like, guys, when we look at what happened this year, I mean, okay, look, we've spent a lot of money, but at the end of the day, Arsenal really just went for it. And I just don't understand why that wasn't the case previously. I don't think it's some massively new thing that Berta did in terms of being able to really stretch your budget, but there seemed to be a resistance to that in previous years. So I don't know where it came from. And I normally feel when you have big people come in to a corporate setting, there's a power vacuum that somebody does have to exit power-wise. I don't know what that would be. I wasn't convinced it would be Lewis, but when it happened, I have to be honest, I sat there and I thought, well, I thought something like this would happen. I don't know if it would be Lewis specifically, but I felt like Berta and, Mikel and Josh seem to really be the trident that the club is looking towards. And Richard Garlick seems to be a little bit more of the head CEO that's taking over maybe the broad title of leadership, let's call it, at the top of the pyramid. But the footballing decision-making process seems to be Mikel, Berta, Josh, the way that they're framing the support of it, at least. And so, yeah.
But I think there comes a time when, and it sort of mentions in that article there, where just your time's up. Like, I think, people grow different responsibilities. There's different, power dynamics. Your expertise is no longer particularly as important as it once was. I think that from everything I've read about Tim Lewis and what I understand about Tim Lewis, a lot of it seemed to be about sort of cleaning house, creating some order, creating some structure, making sense, getting ourselves back in proper conversations at the top level and asserting ourselves and all those sorts of things. And it just comes to a point where actually maybe you don't need that anymore, or maybe you need a different approach and you've established yourself in a different way and your house is a bit more in order and you don't need such a sort of, from everything we've heard in terms of the way he approaches things, someone in that regard. I think specifically though, that article there says Arsenal hijacked Tottenham's move for Eze paying £67.5 million after Tim Lewis, executive vice chairman, urged Josh Kroenke to act while he was on holiday in Croatia. And that's the difficulty, isn't it? Because I think there's maybe been some suggestions that Tim Lewis was the guy kind of holding the purse strings, and maybe he was, and maybe he wasn't. And this is the difficulty at the top level. You don't know whether the reporting is accurate and who's feeding what. Because you can't see it, and there's something you see on the page. But also, it may well have been that Tim Lewis did push for the Eze thing, but also has been holding the purse strings and saying no to stuff for years.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, so you don't know. And I think that's my difficulty. The thing I do know is what I'm excited about is the expertise being brought to the club. It may end up being too many chefs. We may see another departure at some point. Who knows? Possibly. Maybe Josh doesn't feel there's enough space for him, so he pushes someone out. Or actually, maybe feels there's more expertise here, so I can take a step back. Who knows? But I think someone like Ben Winston, if people don't know his background, it's super interesting. Like he's worked with people like One Direction and things like that. Like he's like super in that world, and in terms of how the club sort of popularized themselves, the media and TV rights deals. Someone who understands that world, I think, is a really interesting and smart appointment. You've got a financial appointment there. You've got a real estate appointment there. When you look at the extension plans for the Emirates, etc., etc., there is what feels like a real plan, at least, coming into place. And I think, to go back to it, Rohan, maybe we'll finish with you. I just trust Josh. I know that does not come from loads, but ultimately, since 2018, I have felt he's communicated I always say this, if you build a metric of how you judge an owner, and it's like, commercial success and academy and football success and economic health and satisfaction, all these things you just built, what does an owner have to do? He's not ticked every box, but he's ticked a lot of them.
Absolutely. And that's why I do think that when I look at, what Josh Kroenke has done and the message that he has conveyed, it's been one in which he is backed with action and order. Obviously, the big counter argument that people make is, well, we haven't won anything. But he's still doing what he can do to get us into a position in which we can be successful.
He's not playing centre forward.
Exactly. And I also think with Tim, this is why, we're not privy to a lot of this information, and we never will be, because as you mentioned, Tim Lewis could have stopped a lot of deals in the past, and now it's came out that he was pushing for Arsenal to get this Eze deal. We just don't know. One thing I will say though, and it goes back to your structure point, Tim Lewis was very big on Arsenal, obliging to PSR rules, etc., and not going for loopholes. I do wonder whether Arsenal are looking at how other teams are operating. I hope they don't do this. I hope they don't. We start to operate maybe slightly differently on certain things there. But ultimately, it's one of those ones where we have to wait and see.
Berta strikes me as that kind of willingness.
Got that feeling
as well.
When I saw it in the article,
women's team kind of vibes.
Yeah, when I saw the article, I think it was maybe a week or two ago, and one of the things that was explicitly written from The Athletic was that, he is very, very big on order, obliging to the rules that are currently in place. And maybe there could be something there that we're looking to exploit, perhaps. Hopefully not, but...
I'm going to answer this question quickly because this car alarm, which I had to pause for earlier, is going off again, so apologies. Okay. Let's do this one from Discord. Dinny, I think we've answered that one. Ivan Smith. Eddie Howe said in his post-match interview that Odegaard changed the game for us, and he certainly seemed to thrive in the more free role he played on Sunday. How big an impact do you think he will have on us when he's fully fit, and why? And we mentioned Odegaard briefly earlier. Rohan, I'll come back to you. There was another couple of questions about Odegaard as well. Where do you see him? Because I think he's been out of the team a little bit. We've had Eze in there. He's going to come back in, right?
Absolutely. He will be back in. If he's ready for the next game, he's going to play there. He's going to play at that right centre mid spot. That's where I believe we will see him. But I've said many times, the way that we've been using our midfield this season is we've been doing this emptying and refilling. What it basically means is all our midfielders are dropping outside the block. And what it is to provoke pressure, to provoke the opposition to press onto us, and then other players are stepping into the spaces that they vacated. So, for example, when Odegaard drops out, you've got the right half space higher up, that's now empty. Saka then enters it, Jurriën Timber moves high, and then we've got a different dynamic there that's happening. We've seen at times where Zubimendi will push forward as opposed to staying deep. And to maintain the height that we play with. That's something that Thomas Partey wasn't doing at Arsenal. We've seen what Zubimendi's been doing in terms of moving laterally to the left-hand side to allow us to play same side and to build sequences and patterns through the left. But ultimately, what I do think that this means is it allows Martin Odegaard to be free and to be someone who's going to get a lot of touches on the ball. Martin Odegaard is a high-volume player. His best season at Arsenal is the 23-24 campaign, where he's racking up 80-odd touches a game. Getting involved in the play, that's exactly what he did against Newcastle. There's not something specifically tactical in terms of a trigger or a pass that Odegaard did. It was essentially Odegaard moving around to find solutions outside the block, to supply, to get players in behind. That's the best way to use him, and I think that's the way that we are going to use him. And that's completely different to the way that Eze was being used. Someone who is comfortable between the defensive and midfield line, receiving, turning, and then making something happen. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Odegaard this season. I felt like we're going to see a different Odegaard, one who's fitter, one who's ready. And with the inclusion of Zubimendi, with that partnership with Declan Rice, I think we're going to see a player who is one that we've become accustomed to, not the one that we saw last season.
I do have a lot to say on that, but this car alarm is so annoying that I'm going to quickly move on to the next question. And our final question is one for you, George. From Haroon Hickman, says, less of a question, more of an ask. Would love your thoughts on the emergence of our sustained central threat in this game. It felt like we were ripping through the heart of their team, at will, in a way I haven't seen us do against them. Everything within the width of their 18-yard box felt a lot more aggressive and intentional in terms of passing, shot quality, and our movement. I know we've spoken a little bit about Eze and Trossard and so on and so forth. I think Mosquera is part of this picture. I'm curious on your take.
Yeah, I could see that because of being one of our most progressive passers from the back, I'd say, at least in intent. He's somebody that just presses the issue and increases tempo as well. I think the way that he sends his passage is really punchy. And it comes from this idea about, I think, just being a lot more purposeful in our first phase, as opposed to being as much more methodical. There is a willingness to go more direct, just generally speaking. And it's not to win second balls. I think Arsenal have always been like a team willing to go direct, but for different reasons. I think in early Mikel, it was this idea, go direct to win the second balls, because that's where the strength of the team lies, in Granit Xhaka as well as Declan Rice eventually down the line. But the idea was that we could be a team that could win second balls that way and control games. I feel like now, when you're looking at the build-up, there's a lot more intent about baiting the opposition in and drawing them out to create more space in the middle of the park. There's a lot more intent about trying to wait for the pressure to come, and people aren't standing off as much because we're provoking them to come out a little bit more than we did in past seasons. And I think it's doing a lot of really brilliant work to create space in kind of the middle of the park. And then it's just about us having more freedom to basically exploit that space that we've created and manufactured, because that's what central access is. I mean, nobody wants to give it to you, but you've got to lead them down a way in which they're giving you the answer without telling them the answer. And there's just a lot of really interesting things that I think that we've done this season in build up, but also the up, back, and through motions. Also, some of the things that we've talked about in this pod about how to manufacture space centrally. But I definitely think that it's not been talked about enough in terms of the things that we've done. We've done a lot of new things, and I think we're going to see the output potential for me in these next couple games. That's really where it comes down to for me. But we'll see. Like, I can talk all day till I'm blue in the face about the things that I'm seeing that I feel that are different. But at the end of the day, if the XG numbers are 0.01, people are going to be like, have a day off. So that's where it comes down to.
It's so true, though. It's so true.
Good place to finish it. We will pause there. I think, the car alarm stopped. How exciting. I've just moved house. I won't be in this room forever. Thank God. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope we covered it as much as we could, because I could talk about that game for another 2 podcasts. It was just such a good feeling, and as we say, hopefully it kicks us forward to the rest of the season. We've got loads of extra content coming for you for the rest of the week. We've got rewatches, we've got scouted episodes, we've got the Director's Box phone-in, which you can watch back if you are not a director, loads of other content. The machine keeps rolling, baby. Come on, Arsenal. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much, Rohan.
Nice one.
And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Electrifying. Inspiration.